All right, fans, here we are. We're going to be talking about functional groups. This is what I call the bling on us on organic compounds. It's all the little like doodads that make them like kind of special and make them do their special things, give them even their names, okay? So, functional groups, let's just dive right into the 7 that we're going to talk about in biochem. Hydroxyl groups, you'll see on the next page what they are. Carbonyl groups, carboxyl groups, one of my favorites, amino groups, sulfhydryls, phosphates, and methyl groups. All right, let's look at the next slide, which you're going to get this handout. So it's kind of hard to see on here. If you look at the PowerPoint or if you look at your handout, we're going to first talk about hydroxyls. That's the first group here, hydroxyls. OH. So when you see a little OH at the end, hydroxyl. That's first off what I want you to know. You'll read a lot more here. Hydrogen is bonded to an oxygen, which in turn is bonded to a carbon skeleton. Blah, blah, blah. I just want you to know hydroxyl is an OH that's usually designating alcohols. You'll usually see an ending of OL, okay? And here's an example. This is called ethanol because there's 2 carbons. When we talk about hydrocarbons, we'll talk about the meth, eth, pro, like kind of naming there. But ethanol with the OL on the end says it's got to have a hydroxyl. And ethanol, you know that as like alcohol. That's the kind of alcohol that's in booze. All right. This other stuff is polar as a result of that, can form hydrogen bonds with the water. Don't worry about that so much. It'll kind of come into play as we talk about like polymerization and dehydration synthesis and all that good stuff, which is coming up very soon. Carbonyl is our next group. A carbonyl is a double bonded O to a carbon. Now, that double bonded O can come at the end of a chain or in the middle of a chain. That's very important. Okay, a carbonyl, because that designates the difference between ketones and aldehydes. Ketones are always going to be in the middle of a chain. So you can see this here, acetone, okay? The ONE tone is telling us it's a ketone, and we know that that carbonyl group is going to be in the middle, a carbon with a double bonded O in the middle. But when it's at the end, notice the AL ending, that's going to designate an aldehyde. Propanol, okay, I'm accentuating that. But because we see this carbonyl group at the end, this is an aldehyde. And AL on the end usually designates an aldehyde, ONE, a ketone, generally speaking. Okay. Carboxyl, you may have heard this before because when we talk about amino acids, a lot of your organic acids always have these carboxyl groups at the end, where it's like a carbonyl with a hydroxyl, hence the name carboxyl. Okay, we got a hydroxyl, see that OH there, but we also have a carbonyl group, so that's why it's named carboxyl. Okay, and carboxyls, usually you're going to see acids, okay? When you see the word acid, acetic acid, amino acids, okay, then you know that there's a carboxyl group. This is an example of acetic acid right here. Down below here, nope, I was hoping we had an example of an amino acid, but maybe it'll come up soon later, okay? And deoxyribonucleic acid. There's another one for you. Okay, so another page of functional groups we have here is the amine group, not to be confused with the anice group. No, just bad joke there, bad science joke. Amine group is a nitrogen with 2 hydrogens there. Okay, when you see amines like an amino acid, here's a nice little amino acid for us here. We give it the name amino acid because it has an amine group and it has that acid group, better known as carboxyl, right? Because the carbonyl and the hydroxyl, okay, makes it carboxyl. So that's why it gets its name, amino acid. And that's just one of 20 some amino acids out there, okay? You can see that down here it says sometimes it releases a hydrogen, sometimes it can pick up a hydrogen. Don't worry about that so much. Again, so a lot of these functional properties, they kind of come as we start looking at the molecules. So don't sit here and memorize this chart, but know amine is the word here, and with 2 H's attached to it. Sulfhydryl, really easy to remember because sulfide, it has sulfur and hydrogen in it. Okay, usually find this at the end of the group. It almost looks like hydroxyl group because sulfur is in that same family as oxygen with 2 bonding sites. Thiols. You'll see thiols. It's interesting. There's this one fruit. I'm trying to remember its name, but it has a real stinky smell to it because it has a lot of thiols in it. And those thiols, it smells like sulfur or rotting eggs, but the fruit evidently has a lot of sweet sugars in it. It tastes good if you can get past the smell, evidently. I want to say it's like a prickly pear or something. But anyway, if I find the name of that or it comes to me, I'll let you know about that. Sulfhydryls are going to be very important in this cross linkage in protein structure. You'll see that down here, cross linkage with stabilizing protein structure. When we get into like the primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary structures of protein, sulfhydryl bridges like kind of form to like hold those parts together. Okay. So we have amino groups, sulfhydryl groups. Next one is the phosphate, good old phosphates. And again, we see phosphates in, of course, ATP molecules. We see 3 phosphates. We see phosphates in nucleic acids, good old phosphate sugar and a base. There's 1 phosphate in that. And we even see phosphates sometimes at the end of long carbon chains, okay? And phosphate groups, you'll have a phosphorus attached to 4 oxygens around. One of the oxygen is double bonded, but it leaves open bonding sites for all those other oxygens. So they're going to attach. So a phosphate group could be located in the middle. Usually see them at the ends though, okay? And finally, the methyl group. The methyl group is just C. Whenever you think methane, it has CH4. So methane is just a methyl group. It's just 1. So you can just give it a name. There's no double bonds in it. But methyl group, you'll see a carbon with 3 hydrogens around it. Okay. And usually we write it as like CH3 off of it. And there's your methyl group there. Ooh, NH2. Can anybody think what that's called there? N with 2 hydrogens. I'll wait for it. Some of you are thinking, wait for it. Some of you are looking over here, NH2. Yes, it's an amine group there. So not only did this have, oh, wait a second. We see something else here. What is this carbon with a double bond O in there? Oh, and it's in the middle of a chain. Looks like a carbonyl, which we would call a ketone since it's in the middle of a chain there. Very interesting. All right, let's move on. So now with all that bling that we know, it's like diamonds and pearls and rubies and sapphires. Think of them all as like the little functional groups that are going to decorate our organic compounds. Okay, so let's get to the big and the little of it. First, the little. And you know what I got to bring out? Anybody who knows me knows I'm going to bring out these beads. I love my beads. Monomers and polymers. They're my beads. Okay. I will bring these up all the time with you. Monomers are the building blocks. These are the simple forms of these organic compounds. And they like to form the complex forms because we're very complex living things. Okay. Monomers, polymers. Monomers, the simple, polymers, the complex. All living things are made up of only 4 classes of this. I always like to say the cho-cho-chon-chomp. Carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. You'll see with the cho-cho-chomp. Well, I'm doing it now. Carbohydrates, you always find carbon, hydrogen, oxygen in them. Same with lipids. A little bit more of the carbon and hydrogen, a little less oxygen. Proteins have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And of course, the nucleic acids have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Okay, so we're going to see each of these groups have a monomer form, and each of these groups have definitely polymer forms. And within cells, what is this? Small organic molecules are joined together to form larger ones. Yes. So these small ones are called monomers. I'm kind of repeating myself. Macromolecules is another way of saying polymers. Okay, so making bigger ones. Okay, and on the next page, I'm hoping it's the next page of my thing, it's going to say how these things link up to form that. And again, molecular structure and function are inseparable. Shape matters. I just got to write that down. Shape matters. Don't forget that, everybody. The shape of these molecules really matters. Okay, good. Dehydration synthesis and its opposite, hydrolysis. Dehydration synthesis is sometimes called condensation reactions, probably just to confuse high school biology students. We got to know 2 or 3 different words for the same thing, but it's all the same thing. Okay, dehydration synthesis occurs when 2 monomers are bonded together. So here come my beads. If I have 2 monomers and I want to bond them together, how do you bond them together? You got to remove water. Okay, dehydration, removal of water. Condensation, it condenses out. It's the same kind of idea. But synthesis, got to have that synthesis. You can't just say dehydration without the synthesis. Okay, take the water out, but it synthesizes a bigger molecule. So you go from the simple monomers, and then they only can connect when you remove a water molecule from it, and that forms the bond. Okay. Enzymes are macromolecules that would speed up that process. We'll get into enzymes later. I don't even know why I said it there, but we'll see how that happens later. Now, what's the opposite of that? What if I added water to this? If I add water to this, it would break that bond. So adding water is hydrolysis. Wouldn't it be nice if it said it was just hydration? But no, it's called hydrolysis. Again, to confuse high school biology students. Don't let it happen to you. Okay, so we add water. It breaks that polymer apart, and it goes back down to the monomers. This is what digestion does, but with the help of enzymes. That's probably why I put it there, because it's not enough just to add the water. You got to have an enzyme there to kind of get it over that energy hump, to get it to like go faster, and enzymes are going to do that. So once again, if we have 2 monomers, we want to connect them. We got to do dehydration synthesis. That means remove the water. But if we have 2 monomers and a polymer, or a dimer, what do you call that? And you want to separate it, add water, and they separate. One's dehydration synthesis, one's hydrolysis. Okay. These are basics of biochem. If you don't know these basics, monomer, polymer, dehydration synthesis, and hydrolysis, get to know it right now. Okay. All right. This is just a diagram, just like my beads. And you got this diagram showing you here that if you remove the water, you're adding that monomer here onto this short little polymer to make it a 4-unit polymer. Here is the opposite. Take that 4-unit polymer, add water, and it breaks them apart. So it's just another diagram to reinforce that idea of dehydration synthesis and hydrolysis. And now we're down to our first of the organic compounds category, but we don't always put this into biochemistry. Even though hydrocarbons are definitely a product of living things, they're all our fuels. So think fuels. When we think hydrocarbons, they're the common fuels, okay? But hey, fat's a fuel too, as we'll see and hopefully see more in the future. Hydrocarbons are just that, hydrogen and carbon, okay? And that's all they consist of. Hydrocarbons are used for fuels, a lot of your gasolines and stuff. Look at this. Many organic molecules such as fats have hydrocarbon components. You'll see like fatty acids. The fatty part is the hydrocarbon part, also making them hydrophobic. Hydrocarbons are hydrophobic. Remember that word hydrophobic? Phobic means does not like water, will not mix well with water. Okay, this is why gasoline spills and stuff like that are floating on the ocean instead of like blending in, which I don't know. Would it be worse if it actually blended in? Good question there. But how to remove it is a whole nother problem in itself. So hydrocarbons can undergo reactions that release large amounts of energy because they're such stable molecules. They have a lot of energy like in those bonds. So let's take a look at some hydrocarbons here. And we're not going into a lot of detail about this. I could talk about like naming these hydrocarbons with like ethane. Eth usually means 2 carbons. Meth is 1. I remember it would go meth was 1. Eth was 2. Pro meant 3. Metheth pro bute was 4. Let's skip way down to what do you suppose oct would be? Yeah, you're right. 8. Okay, like an octopus or the octomom or something. Didn't she have 8 kids or something like that? Octane. Maybe you've heard of that. You go to the the gas station and you actually fill up with some octane. You've heard of propane being used, propane tanks for fuel.